Hey everyone, welcome back. This is part 2 of the video I wanted to make about the Behringer Eurorack Go case. Yesterday I did an unboxing and kind of first impressions of it. So today I thought I'd dig a little deeper in it and kind of switch out my modules. I'm kind of going from this tip-top audio Mantis rack to the Eurorack Go case. So I've got all my supplies here. I'm going to basically do the transfer and then do a little bit of test, not audio test, but kind of more of a physicality test, kind of see how it feels, how it acts, how the stand acts. So we'll just go from there. The first thing I wanted to talk about was kind of what was in the manual. I didn't go through this yesterday, but I had a question I realized I wanted to answer was, are the sliding nuts in here, are these M2.5s or M3s? Obviously the first thought I had when I see these are my make noise skiffs, which use the 2.5s. So I assume they were probably that, but I looked in the manual and they're actually M3s. It's kind of hidden. Well, you know what? Instead of me trying to like show this, let me see. Let me pull it up on the computer here. All right. So this is the quick start guide that comes in the box. This is on the Behringer site now. I know a week or two ago when I checked on it, they had the images, but they didn't have the actual quick start guide. So there's actually some decent information here. First, you get through the boilerplate. You know, nothing really interesting here. This is the only spot right here where it says that it comes 96 captive M3 nuts. I didn't see any other reference to the size of the threading, so that's where you want to look. You know, they're rendering at the back. Interesting layout of the power cables here. It's a little more detailed than I've seen usually from other cases. And basically saying what you probably figured is, you know, in zone A, B, and C, there's a 3 amp total. They're basically saying don't exceed 1 amp for each zone, and that's for all the plus 12, negative 12, and plus 5. I know I saw this online the other day. Someone was asking how this wiring from this 10 pin to a 16 pin header is supposed to go, and this is kind of the way Behringer lays it out. So I think that's a pretty good answer there, and something you should follow and check, and not assume that all your 10 to 16 pin cables are going to follow that formula. So this is probably the most interesting and the most valuable part of the guide, is this depth guide that shows you the different zones and how deep of a module you could put into each zone. You know, see if I could zoom in on here. The first row, or the top row, is all about 40 millimeters. You know, it honestly looks like you can go a little deeper on some areas, but I'm sure that's the maximum they want to do because they don't want any wires really interfering with the power supply units or blocking any of the other power pins. The bottom is where you have these different zones where you've got your maximum depth of 62 millimeters on the left and right, and then where the insert with the stand comes in, you go from 57 and then into 47. So good to know. I know I've got a couple deep modules like my Magneto or my ES9 that are just a pain to try to fit in to some of these types of cases. Other than that, not much really worth in here, but if you're interested in whether your modules are going to fit in here, it's good to download this, if nothing else, for this this depth map right here. Which, if you go to Modular Grid, I've got all my things up here. I don't think I have anything. Let me see. I don't think I have any that much that's even over 40. Let me see here. Yeah, 40 is the top row. So I've got this one expander's 40 that's going on the bottom. That's good. So the ADAC is 52. The Verb is 42. That's going on the bottom, so that's fine. And these two are going on the bottom, so I think we're good, except for, let me check this ADAC. The ADAC I have kind of in this middle area. And so yeah, that might be a problem, depending on exactly how that is. So if the max is 47, ADAC62, so it's going to have to be out of that zone. So I might have to, on the fly, kind of maybe switch these modules up. So, but again, for me, I love being able to see that and plan it out. I personally hate it and drives me nuts when I start, I have a plan all laid out for modules and then I start doing it, and then on the fly I have to kind of refigure it because there's some sort of depth issue. So yeah, here's the basic layout of where I'm going to end up. And total is roughly 2.4 amps. So well under the 3 amp threshold. Now we see here each row has a little bit over 1 amp, so I can't just plug in one row on one zone, one row another. I'm going to have to split some modules into different zones, or into the third zone, just to make sure I'm not getting over an amp. Probably ideally I want to get to like 800 milliamps on each zone roughly. So I'll do the math behind the scenes and get ready to put up for that. All right, so otherwise I'm ready to do the transfer. I've got my current case. I've got another case of all my extra modules that are going in off to the side. Got my bin of power cables, and then I've got my case of other stuff, my Knurleys, my HP ruler, and some standoffs if needed, but hopefully not. So I'm going to go ahead and set a montage on this so you don't have to sit through it, and I'm going to go ahead and transfer it out. I'll time it to see how long it takes. You will probably also see me messing around quite a bit with these sliding nuts. Not looking forward to messing with those. I don't, like I said, besides my make noise skiff, I don't have any other racks that have sliding nuts, so I'm not entirely proficient in dealing with them, but we'll see how that goes. All right, we're going to start the transfer now, and I'm going to just start the timer, and just for fun, we'll see how long this actually takes. Don't know if you can see that. I got a brand new Trash Master. Look at that. Yeah, that pin right there is messed up. Let's see if we can try to wiggle it back in. Okay, so it took just about 50 minutes to do the full transfer. Give me a second, I'm just double checking everything. Okay, so after I finished the install of everything, I went back and I double checked the math on all of the power requirements, which I'm glad I did because I was kind of doing the math on the fly in my head as I was installing everything, and I ended up making an error. So As we said before, we have 3 zones. We got A, B, and C that could take about 1 amp each. Everything in here is about 2.4 amps total. I was wanting to have everything around 800 milliamps per zone. But because of the mistake I made, we had 700, 800, and 900. That's definitely under 1 amp, but, ideally you want to keep this roughly at least 80% if you can. What I did was I moved the WMD Crater from Zone B to Zone A, and the Joanalog Filter 8 from Zone Z to Zone B. And now we've got 825, roughly 750, and 825. So I kind of looked everything over. That's probably about the best I'm going to get if I want to keep this layout, or if I don't want to get extra long power cables. So I'm comfortable with that now. I wasn't comfortable with one zone having 900 out of an amp. So always a good reminder, check your power settings and then double check them, because you never know. This is all very delicate electronic equipment. One bad day could fry a lot of stuff. So some issues that came up during the install that I noticed. One of the most interesting things, and let me switch cameras. I don't think you can really see it on that view, and this is kind of far away and it's black on black, so it's really, I can't really show you, but there's a little gap on the right. I mean, there was a gap overall. I kind of shoved everything over so it'd be on the right. The top row, it's almost like it's a 1 HP difference, and the bottom row, it's definitely about less than that, maybe a half. So actually we got this ruler, so let's check it out. Yeah, the top row is definitely 1 HP gap. So I've got a 1 HP spacer. Maybe I'll find that, although that leads me to my second question. I actually was surprised. I didn't count beforehand. I probably should have, but I barely had enough sliding nuts in there to make this work. I think I had 1 extra left over, which kind of got lost in the process. So even if I wanted to put that 1 HP blank panel there, I'd have to go through and find the extra ones and kind of redo all the sliding nuts, which would be a pain, and one of the reasons I'm not really a fan of sliding nuts. But otherwise, one thing to note I thought was also interesting, it's good to know, I had a question. On paper, this shouldn't be able to fit here. According to the Behringer manual, this, I believe, let me see here, this area, go back to the depth map here, yeah, can only do 47 millimeters in depth. And then the Quantec ended up being right here. I'm sorry, the ADAC ended up being right there. And according to the chart here, it's 52, so it's 5 millimeters extra. But it fit here, and it fit here just fine. It was tight. I don't think it's going to go beyond 52. What I'm guessing is that the depth chart that Behringer's using is taking the absolute lowest value in here, and that might also be accounting for the potential added depth when you add in a power cable to the back of a module. The reason this area is so shallow is because you've got that stand imprint where the stand sits. The stand imprint doesn't go down this far. The bottom is where the power cable for this module actually lives. So there's more than enough space for the module, for the power cable to extend from the bottom of the module and be plugged in. So maybe I got lucky here, but something to take in mind that the depth chart, just because it says that it's 47, it might fit depending on your module. Might go a little bit farther, which is great because this is the shallowest area, and if it's going to fit this 52 millimeter module here, then that's a pretty good indication that you're going to find good space throughout the whole case. All right, I've got the the power brick installed, and we got the green light right here to indicate it's receiving power. I want to take a moment just to vent a little bit. I know this is the same way with the tip-top Manus plugs, but I'm really not a fan of these bricks having this short of a cable afterwards. So basically what that means is I plug it in, I've got to have the brick basically sitting attached to it. It may sound kind of weird, but sometimes I like to sit in bed and like have this in my lap while I'm working on this and watching something, but like I can't have this off the bed because then it's hanging, or if I push it to the back of the table, then I got to give it more room to kind of have that right there, or else it kind of falls down off the table and yanks out the cord. So I'm sure I could probably get an extender for this and I can quit complaining, but I really only see this short of a cable from a brick in Eurorack for some reason. I don't know why that is a design choice, but it is what it is, and I hope I'm not the only one who feels that way. So I've double checked all my power connections. Everything seems to be connected correctly. We go ahead and pull in. On the back, you just have your output and power switch, no sync there like in the Mantis, but I know it's not really used too often. All right, go ahead and power it up. All right. Everything appears to be working correctly. I'm not seeing any issues anywhere, so that's great. Everything seems to be behaving as it should, except for the bit box, which needs to flip over. There we go. All right, so power looks good. I'm not going to do a full connection tonight, just to play around, just because I'm still setting up this new recording area and I don't have the levels mixed together. But what I will do is I'll kind of just talk about how it feels, and then another person who watched the previous video, I believe his name is Andy, had a question about how it handles when it's on the stand when you're patching plugs in and out of it. So we'll do a quick test of that as well. I think that's a good question. So overall, I mean, it's not that heavy. I'm surprised. I mean, it's definitely heavier than the Manus, but I keep getting fooled. I keep thinking because this is black, perhaps it looks more of a metal. The finish looks more metal than the Mantis, which is white and has an obvious plastic-looking feel. So I don't know. I keep thinking that this is going to be heavier than it is. So you've got the handle on the back, which, yeah, technically it's a handle and it'll work. And here's that issue where I'm trying to lift this up and I got this power brick just dangling right here. It's driving me nuts. Okay, so yeah, I'm lifting this up, and yeah, it'll work in a pinch, but man, I would not feel comfortable kind of just carrying this around as a main mode of transportation. I mean, and that's understood because, I mean, it's a trade-off because this is, I think, a deeper handle than the Mantis, but for every amount of depth you're going in, you're giving up space on the inside, which is going to affect what kind of modules you can put in. So just again, to kind of look at the I'm just going to feel the Manus. Yeah, the Manus handle, it never, like, it's flat right here. So there's no real place for your fingers to grab onto so much, especially when there's a lot of modules in there weighing it down. Here, there's a bit of an angle upward, so it feels a little more grabbable. Still, I wouldn't ever really use this unless I'm literally like trying to move it off of me, or maybe from one area of a desk to another area of a desk. I wouldn't walk around with this as the main handle. As I'm sitting up, I'm noticing it's actually sitting up straight up like that. That's interesting. I wasn't expecting that, which, again, I don't think it's safe, but, it's not, the center of gravity is pretty low on it. It's more than I expect. So, hey, if you're just by yourself, maybe for some reason, if you wanted this or you have a special type of layout, that might work for you. Maybe make some homemade feet on there to stick out and make it just a tad more stable. But we'll go ahead and check out the stand here. The stand feels solid. I mean, it's probably due. We've got these rubber feet right here, which keep it from sliding around. I'm going to move the Manus case out of the way. I don't want that to kind of be buffering it in the background and make it appear more stable than maybe it is. I'll get rid of my other supplies right here. Okay. So we just have the Eurorack Go. That's power brick. All right, and again, for me, this is a great angle because I could see the screens pretty well. I could patch. Like I said, for me, it's a good angle. Might not work out for everyone, but for me, it's pretty good. Okay, so again, one of the questions I want to have is how does it handle being patched, especially in the corners? So I'll be a little rough to my shuttle, even though I shouldn't, but I'm really shaking. Sorry for the shaky camera. I've got this so high up in the air to sort of capture all the area. My camera arm is just like, has no support behind it, so any shaking, it kind of shakes around. Yeah, I mean, I really got to give it a shake for it to move. And again, I think that's the rubber feet on the bottom of the stand there. Yeah, I mean, pushing it here, you're basically pushing down into the back thing. So this is, if you're pushing down here, this isn't going to go anywhere, really, unless you got to push with a little force that way. But you're not gonna, if you're plugging in your patch cords to the point where you're creating this much torque, then you need to be more kind to your modules. So overall, I think it's pretty darn stable. Now, like I said, this is basically a one angle stand. You're not going to get any other angles out of this. So basically, you've got, if you're kind of adventurous, you can set it up like that. You can do this angle, and you can just lay it flat with that stupid power brick getting in the way again. Yeah, everything seems to be working great. I'm happy with it so far. We'll see how it works out with actually, like I said, a lot of times I'll just be on the couch or on the bed kind of doodling with the Eurorack, and this is kind of like my master workstation to start something from. It was easy to do that with the Manus. I have a slight concern that this might start to be a little bit too big. So far it seems okay. It's not as gargantuan as I thought it may be, so it may work out. We'll see. But overall, pretty happy with the purchase. Pros, obviously, are the price. I know there's a lot of controversy with Behringer entering the Eurorack space and their business practices. However, I'm of the opinion that Eurorack we need more people in Eurorack. It's always a good thing to get more people in. And pushing aside everything else Behringer does, having an entry-level case that's this big and this cheap is going to be a good thing. It's going to be a good thing that it's going to be a lower cost of entry to get into this hobby. Because I can't tell you a lot of people that start getting into it and they just start looking at the price of cases and they kind of go through the roof. And you've got the Manus as a direct competitor, and that's still a good product. And if you really want to look at expansion capability, I actually have 2 other Manuses that are on the stand, so we have 4 rows of 104. That's great, and that's a pro that the Manus has that the Behringer Eurorack Go case does not yet. You know, I think we start getting to a size and a weight where it kind of becomes a safety issue if you're going to start leaning them up and you know, making them stand. I'm going to bet that Behringer wasn't looking that far ahead and didn't design these structurally to accommodate a stand, but we'll see. I mean, the Manus, from my opinion, is that the Manus barely is able to accommodate the stand. There's a lot of warnings, a lot of special instruction you have to make sure it doesn't break or damage the cases. So maybe Behringer will just throw a caution and add an expansion pack as well. But right now, Manus definitely has that above the Eurorack Go. This is, you know, if you're keen to aesthetics, it's a little bit sleeker. This comes in black. It's sturdy. If you're okay with having fewer angles, it'll work better. But the Manus, again, does have more angles that you could put those legs in. Yeah, overall, I'm happy with it, and I think it'll work out. If you've got any other questions, anything you're curious about this case that I didn't answer, please feel free to leave a comment, and I'll get back to you. Maybe I'll do another follow-up video if there's enough interest. Otherwise, I'll just respond to you in the comments with what I find. But otherwise, I hope you found this helpful, and let me know if you have any other questions. Thanks. Bye.